We're here today with State Superintendent Joy Hofmeister, giving POE members opportunity to hear her vision and goals for the state of Oklahoma.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you.
Tell us about your family and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, well, I have 4 kids. My husband and I have been married 33 years, and our kids are now in their 20s, and I just have one left in college my youngest is a senior at OU. But I've had OSU grad and another OU grad as well, so we've kind of covered some of the bases.
What do you do for fun, hobbies, stuff like that?
You know, most of my life has been wrapped around our kids and those activities after school, of course. I was also a small business owner, and also I love my work with, actually I was a Bible study fellowship leader for about 9 years. So I got to be involved in that for a long, long time, working as a volunteer.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier that your husband attended seminary.
Yeah.
What church do y'all go
to? Southern Hills Baptist Church in Tulsa, and we've been members there, I think, 28 years, actually. But we started our marriage in seminary at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, Texas. And so then after that, my husband went to law school, and he has been a judge in the city of Tulsa for about 15 or 16 years.
So where did you go to college, and what did you major in?
I majored in education. I started out at Southwest Baptist University in Missouri, kind of the OBU of Missouri, and that's actually where I met my husband. And then when we moved to Texas, I was able to finish up in the last 2 years at Texas Christian University. Actually, my husband put me through school. We were hall directors. So we lived in the athletic hall, had about 400 athletes that we lived with for 4 years.
That's really great.
Yeah.
So you shared earlier that you were in the education and classroom about 16 years.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
I've been an educator for 16 years and started out teaching reading in first graders, but have continued a passion with those who also are English learners, and it spans obviously beyond just the elementary age, but all the way through middle school and high school. So I have also experienced working in other states, but also knowing that in Oklahoma, working with parents as well, the engagement of family is key for any kind of academic success, whether kids are a little behind or whether they need greater challenges. All kids deserve to grow and learn, but we know not all kids have a family that can be there to partner with the school, and that's where my passion and interest lie right now at the State Department of Ed.
This year was pretty tumultuous at the Capitol, to say the least. Can you give us your thoughts on education and where it stands right now in Oklahoma?
Yeah, so I actually am pretty optimistic. What I've witnessed starting at the time when I was serving as a voluntary board member, but on the State Board of Education, that started in 2012. And what I saw was a time where a lot of top-down reforms were being pushed on our state without meaningful collaboration, input, or any kind of discussion about how that looks to be funded and implemented. And as a state board member, I kind of had a front row seat to that and reached out to superintendents, principals, teachers that were near me as I was representing the District 1 of the way the state is divided into congressional districts. And then began to hear from people all over the state. So that has been an important takeaway for me that has shaped the way I approach leadership right now at the State Department of Ed. I think we have people that had been pushed away from the table that needed to be invited back. And we need to hear from a whole variety of stakeholders. But at the end of the day, we need a fully engaged community around education. And so to answer your question about what I think about a tumultuous year and where we're headed, I see engagement like we've not seen before. It far surpasses the kind of engagement even around 1017 and some of the improvements that came with that regarding class size, etc. But we also see something that I think endures over time. This was not an event that culminated with a lot of people at the Capitol. This was really something that began really years ago as funding in education was eroded, as too many things were being piled on top of educators, and very little input and absolutely no funding. So when that occurred, I think we reached a place where teachers who had been walking out of Oklahoma classrooms and into other states, that was recognized. But those who wanted to stay in Oklahoma actually walked, to the Capitol and said, I want to look eye to eye to those who represent me and make sure they know the story of the kids in our own classrooms.
Obviously, salary was very important, one of the biggest things that was fought over this year.
Yeah.
But aside from that, what do you see the major challenges facing our classroom teachers?
Well, I think the most important thing is about funding for classrooms. And the fact that we have a teacher shortage has meant that we have overcrowded classrooms. Even if we had the requirement for class size in place right now, there's been a waiver in place because of funding levels. And unfortunately, that has led to, I think, a very difficult time for teachers because they want to be able to give more of an individualized approach to kids. But when you have hundreds of students a day, or you have a overcrowded kindergarten classroom with no ability to have an aide or someone that can assist in addressing the unique needs of learners, kids aren't going to be served well, and teachers are exceedingly frustrated. And that's where we find ourselves. So that has to change. And we also need to be sure that our schools have the resources to meet unique needs of learners. And we see more and more of our children that are experiencing trauma in their life like we have, perhaps many of us can't even imagine. And for some of them, it's ongoing. Others, it was an event, witnessing some kind of abuse or being abused. There is trauma-informed instruction that I want very much to be sure our teachers have and receive that training. Our teachers are hungry for this. We know that through our time in the summer with Engage OK, where we're going to different communities, 7 different communities in the state. That is the #1 requested and attended workshop for teachers. It's standing room only, overflow rooms in every venue. So this is an area that we know teachers need and our kids deserve.
Superintendent, with things that are going on around the country, school safety.
Absolutely.
Where do you see that role for the State Department of Education with school safety?
Yeah. Well, in Oklahoma, and I think this is the case in any state, we have to make sure that whatever that looks like, that's determined at a district or a local school building level. We can't have a cookie size, kind of approach to cookie cutter approach to how we address the needs. And just having an armed guard somewhere or metal detectors does not make for a safe environment. What we really need are relationships, the ability for individuals in schools to build trust with teachers, with staff members, with bus drivers, cafeteria workers. It's all about the network of professionals that surround and work within our schools and the mental health resources that are needed for our children. That has been severely cut. That funding has been eroded. That is harming our kids. And that does not make for the kind of learning environment that all kids deserve. So that's an area we have plans to tackle. We already have a summit for trauma-informed instruction and a school that looks to being trauma-informed and those steps that need to be made and investments that need to be made. That's actually scheduled for October 2nd. So we're excited for addressing that, but this is not something that can be solved overnight. But it takes people. And again, it takes enough people so that no child slips through cracks.
Thank you. What's your opinion on education savings accounts?
I'm against that. I think that's just a voucher by another name. I also think that we should not be looking to do a complete overhaul of the way we do public school by somehow siphoning off money that belongs in Oklahoma public schools. I do think that it's important, again, that we have parents engaged, but no parent should be fleeing a public school. My job is to ensure that our schools have the resources they need. It starts with the teacher. And the funding for instructional materials, for whatever tools are needed to be able to inform the guidance and instruction we give. And then we need to ensure that none of that is eroded so that our school, the neighborhood school around the corner, is a top choice.
So what is your vision ongoing for the State Department of Education?
Well, we've got a long-term plan for education. That was designed not by one person or a small committee. That was through 14 months of work with stakeholders traveling all over the state, but also working out details with those who will be impacted by policy decisions and goals that are set that also comply with federal requirements, and then taking that and shaping it in a way that makes sense for Oklahoma. First, we had to look at where are we? Where do we want to be? I want every child who finishes the school year or graduates across the stage at the end of 12th grade to be ready to walk in the door for their post-secondary opportunity at Career Tech or in a community college or a university without the need to retake classes. We know that there are great things happening in alternative education. We are not funding that the way we should. That is one of the budget priorities we presented, and we'll continue to fight for an increased budget for both alternative education, but also for the reading instruction that starts early, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. Actually, for the first time, we even have pre-K standards for learning math and reading that will kind of vertically progress into kindergarten, first and second, all very seamlessly, so that we are using the time well that we have and that we've invested as Oklahomans into education.
This past year, professional home educators developed the 60 and 6 plan, which was to take a career 25-year classroom teacher to $60,000. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm all for teachers making $60,000 a year or in anything, any kind of level, graduated or across the board, whatever it takes to be nationally competitive. That is where we need to be. We can't just be satisfied with being regionally competitive. And that's what we've been fighting for so long. Oklahoma has been at the bottom in teacher pay and at the bottom in what we give to our classrooms for our students. Education funding must be an investment that is sustained, so it can't be one and done, and a plan that will build on what was accomplished in this legislative session is sorely needed. So we've got to keep momentum going.
The challenges facing career teachers, keeping a career teacher in the classroom, what are those?
I think those are more than pay, of course. Those are about the resources in classrooms, the ability to have support outside the classroom, whether that are perhaps more counselors, even the kind of resources that come through shared partnerships with mental health, with DHS, with the kind of support our kids need, special education, English learners. Our teachers are facing a very diverse learner environment that is really different than it was even 30 years ago. So we have to step up as a state and provide the resources, the training for our school districts, and then also I personally believe we've got to get out of the way and let teachers teach. Teachers want to be able to work their craft, what they have worked so hard and through training, but also through the experience of years of working with students. A veteran teacher is one who can recognize red flags, who is able to have early intervention for a student. And that is something that we have lost in Oklahoma. The average length of stay of an Oklahoma teacher is only 6 years. So if you think about it, we really are losing about half of our teachers in just those first 1 to 5 years. And we see this churning of new personnel. Then we are going to see many people retire as baby boomers are retiring. And for so long, we have lost people across this border to other states or out of the profession altogether. That has to change. And the first investment is in competitive pay for teachers.
And through this process today, we appreciate you doing this and answering these questions. Are there any questions that you wish we would have asked?
Yeah. Well, just also to go back, adding one more thing to the last question about what else. What is it that we could identify the reasons that teachers have left or are teetering, deciding whether or not to stay in Oklahoma? We actually know that there are 32,000 Oklahoma teachers that are certified, that we have continuing every 5 years to keep and maintain their certification, but are not teaching in an Oklahoma public school. So we surveyed those educators and reached 29,000. Then we received back full responses to a survey of questions asking very much what you are seeking, which is a broader picture for what teachers need or why they have left or what it would take to get them back. And we found within a 1% margin of error that teachers, 31% would come back for pay alone. But for many of them, they didn't feel that their principal had their back. And it is about leadership. It's about leadership in the building that supports teachers, that will also provide the kind of learning environment, discipline that provides the needs of individual students, but also the greater needs of students in a classroom where they also have the need of, minimized disruption and the ability to focus on learning and growing and receiving the full attention of their teachers. And those are the kinds of things that have to be addressed if we're going to turn things around in Oklahoma. So working to better support principals is also part of our plan. We know teachers have been leaving, but also we have a shortage of principals. And for many of the teachers who responded to us, they said if they were a part of a great team, it really mitigated some of the scarce resources that they were enduring. But they would leave if they felt that their principal didn't have their back. And so that has to change too.
Something else?
I think that, again, because there is momentum, we cannot allow that to stall. And we have to continue to tell the story of the children in classrooms all across this state. And only the teacher can tell that story. That is one that, principals can tell what's happening in the building, but it's the teacher who is able to describe what happened in the lives of their children after class. What is happening with parents that are less engaged, who don't have the kinds of support that they can provide. And there may be barriers outside their control, language barriers, the need to be working 2 or 3 jobs. What we can control in this state is to ensure that our teachers are treated as professionals, that they have respect. This is about honoring the profession and respecting individuals, and then ensuring that they have what they need to succeed.
Thank you so much. Thank you for visiting our viewers today. State Superintendent Joy Hofmeister, running for re-election as our State Superintendent. The primary is June 26th. We encourage all teachers to vote. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.